I'm actually replacing fuel lines going from the fuel pump to the carburetor. It's on a 1997 Yamaha Vmax SX700. One of the things you'll find is if you're not using OEM style fuel hoses, you will probably have to figure out what the size is, and it took me maybe one trial to actually figure out what size I need. What size I'm going to use, I'm going to show you the hose I have here right now. I'm going to use, this is in inches, 0.185 inches on the ID. So that's the type of hose you need. You don't want something much bigger than that. The OD on this one is about 0.308 inches. That's what I'm going to use. It's very similar to what I had before. This is an aftermarket hose, not an OEM. And you also have to make sure you have the right size of clamps. So you may need to switch out the clamps on an aftermarket type hose, which is not really, it's a universal hose that I'm using, a Tygon, which is fuel resistant. You have to make sure it's fuel resistant. And I'm going to show you how to install this when it's really cold outside. Right now it's pretty cold, so this hose is probably shrunk to the smallest position it can be. You would have to heat up the hose to get it on the barbs, otherwise you're going to struggle putting it on the barbs. So I'm going to heat up this hose. You don't want to heat it up too much, you just want to heat it up a little bit and see if you can get it in. You don't want to make it super hot. Okay, this is still cold, so I'm going to have to heat it up some more. Just make sure you don't have any gasoline in the area when you heat this up, and don't go too hot, just enough to make it slide on this. Okay, it's already flexible. I'm gonna have to try and slide it in. I don't think it's going to go anymore. So I'm going to put the clamp on it. I'm going to use a pair of nose pliers and then depress this and use a screwdriver to push underneath to get it to slide on. I think it's gone in some. Just have to get it all the way in. There we go. And you want to make sure that it's not going to interfere with the other hoses. I have 3 other hoses that needs to come here, so I push this out of the way. I'm going to cut the next length of hose using the old hose that I was using as a guide. I need to cut it right about there. Use the edge of this, cut it. You want to make sure you do a straight cut. I did get a cut. I need another section of hose. Let's see. Well, this one's kind of not really straight, so a long section of hose. Cut it right about there. Okay, got 2 sections to work with. Let's do this again. You want to try avoid heating up the other oil or fuel lines, and just do the one that you're try to move it away from other things. Yep, that worked. So push this clamp into position. If you use a clamp holder or something that helps you install and remove clamps, you'll do a lot better off than what I'm doing here, because I'm using a vice grip to do the same thing. You have to do the same thing for the other end. So I want to show you something. When you put the fuel lines in, you do not want to put it this way. You see the kink in the line? So I cut it too long, so it has to be more like a smooth connection between the 2 points. So it looks like I'm going to have to cut part of this hose off, and I'm going to do it right here just to make sure I get it right. You don't want kinks in the hose like I mentioned, because that will obstruct the fuel flow. So what I'm going to do is actually cut it right up against here. This is what it should look like. So I heated up this hose, which I'm going to install on here. So for this particular hose, you have to get it routed in here. But before I do that, I'm going to put a clamp on there. It has to go underneath this, and then you have to go underneath the shield under the jack shaft. This hose has to go under both these lines and shift over, and there's a strap underneath this jack shaft which it needs to go under to protect it from when this jack shaft turns. When the snowmobile's running, the jack shaft is always spinning at high RPMs. You know, it could be 3,000 to 5,000 to 8,000 RPMs, so that's revolutions per minute, and you don't want it rubbing on these hoses. You have to get it under there. I'm going to heat the hose and install it and put the clamps on, and then I'm done, and I have to test the snowmobile and make sure it's not leaking.